Hey everyone, John here from testprepinsight.com, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Babbel Russian language program. I'm going to cover how the Babbel course is structured, what their learning method is all about, the pros and cons of this app, and of course whether I think it's an effective program for learning Russian. And just as a heads up, since I'll just be covering the major highlights in this video and trying to keep things kind of short, if you find you need some more detail at any point, you can always check out our full detailed written review over on our website. An easy way to get there is just to Google Test Prep Insight Babbel Russian Review. That's the quickest way to get there. All right, so when you first sign up for Babbel, they're going to ask you a few different questions, like how much experience you have with the Russian language, how much time per day you have to dedicate towards learning, what your ultimate goal is, etc. And then from there, you can pick a learning path based on either your current skill level or thematic topics like work, travel, or other things. For most people, I assume you're just going to want to start at the newcomer level unless you happen to have taken some Russian classes in high school or you have a specific topic in mind. But in any event, there's around 2 to 8 courses per level, and then breaking each down further within each course, there's call it 10 to 15 lessons to complete. So really, that's the Babbel Russian course in a nutshell. You have levels, courses, lessons. That's the breakdown. Now, as far as learning method goes, unlike other Russian language apps that skew more towards one type of lesson format, like audio lessons only, for example, the Babbel Russian course is much more balanced. Their lessons help develop both your receptive and expressive language skills. This means listening, reading, writing, and speaking, as well as grammar, of course. The drills within the Babbel lessons touch on all of these different skills. And then, to make sure you don't lose what you learn in the standard lessons, Babbel regularly prompts you to complete review sessions so that the Russian vocabulary that you're introduced to moves from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So that's the company's learning framework. Babbel seems to believe that a holistic approach packaged in a short, engaging lesson format, coupled with consistent reinforcement, is the most effective way to learn Russian. Okay, so now before I dive into the pros and cons of the Babbel Russian program, let's quickly talk about cost and how it compares to other language apps. So Babbel offers 4 different subscription options: month to month for $18, a 3-month plan for around $45, a 6-month plan for $80, and then an annual 12-month plan for $105. So all in all, you're looking at around $8 to $18 per month. Or if you don't want to deal with the monthly payment, Babbel also offers a one-time purchase lifetime option that costs around $350. So putting this in perspective, Babbel isn't the cheapest app that we've reviewed, but it's also not the most expensive either. It sort of lands in the middle. It's more expensive than Duolingo and Mondly, but also cheaper than the likes of Pimsleur and Rocket Russian. Plus, one important thing to note here is that Babbel is really aggressive with their deals and special promos, and you can almost always find a discount on their app, so make sure to check for codes. In fact, I'll actually do my best to keep the description down below updated with the most current coupon codes that I can find floating around out there, so make sure to check out that text below the video screen before buying. You might be able to save yourself some coin if you decide to go with Babbel. Okay, so now that you know how Babbel Russian works and how much it costs, let's get into the pros and cons. And let's start with the positives. And the first one in my eyes is Babbel's short, diverse lesson format. It really helps to keep you active and engaged. So first, I like that the lessons incorporate aspects of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. This really helps to keep the learning process fresh and fun. And then second, each lesson only takes around 10 minutes to complete, which is ideal if you're busy. That way you can quickly knock out lessons during your lunch break or waiting to pick up your kids from school, and you can still feel like you're making progress in your language learning journey. It really helps to keep you motivated. All right, so next up, I mentioned the Babbel review sessions earlier, but what I didn't mention before is that Babbel gives you the choice of how you want to review. You can choose between flashcards, listening, speaking, or writing. So say you're weak in a particular area, maybe listening, for example, which is pretty common. You can select that option and really hone in on that skill set until you start improving. I think that's pretty cool and I love the flexibility. Okay, so next, I'd like to highlight Babbel's grammar instruction. And I know this is a bit of a sensitive subject among language experts. Some linguists don't like the idea of any grammar instruction, while others believe that you really need it to build your foundational understanding of the language. Well, the good news is that Babbel sort of toes the line between the two. They don't hit you over the head with long, boring textbook-style definitions, but they also don't leave you hanging either. They really thread that needle perfectly, in my opinion. They subtly integrate short, concise grammar explanations and insights into their lessons so that you can get a feel for basic Russian grammar rules. And by the way, if you want to see some examples of what I'm talking about here, make sure to check out that full detailed written review that I mentioned earlier. I'll have it linked down below in the description for you. I have screen grabs and examples over there so you can get a better feel for how Babbel handles grammar instruction. All right, so next up, I'd like to give a shout out to the company's speech recognition technology. I've tested dozens of speech software tools at this point, and I have to say that Babbel's is one of the better ones. It's easy to use, it's quick, and in my experience, it was pretty darn accurate. That way, as you complete the various verbal practice drills within the lessons, you can continue to refine your pronunciation. All right, and the last item that I'd like to highlight here is Babbel's digital platform and mobile app. The user experience with Babbel is just flat out awesome. The company's user interface is modern and intuitive, and I think it's easily one of the best language apps on the market from a user experience standpoint. All right, so that about covers my pros. Now let's turn the tables and talk about the things that I don't necessarily like about Babbel's Russian program. But before I get to that, I do just want to mention that every single month here at Test Prep Insight, we actually give away a free language learning subscription to one lucky person. I'll put all the details down below in the description on how to get entered, but just know it takes like 10 seconds and hey, you never know, you could win a totally free subscription to Babbel Russian. Okay, so first up, while I like the company's speech recognition technology, I do have to say that I wish the verbal practice exercises themselves were more advanced. They're just sort of basic. You're really just asked to repeat words and phrases immediately after listening to them without context. Instead, I wish Babbel offered users the chance to use the language spontaneously and under pressure like you would in the real world. I think this type of verbal practice is ultimately much more effective. For example, within the Rocket Russian program, you have the opportunity to participate in simulated conversations with fluent Russian speakers. And then, another negative is that there is no video component within the Babbel lessons. And even the use of visuals, like images and graphics, is pretty limited. So if you're more of a visual learner, you might want to take note of this. If you process information best through visual means, then maybe a program like LingoPie or Rosetta Stone would be a better fit. Just throwing that out there. And lastly, it's kind of a bummer that Babbel doesn't offer live Russian classes like they do for their Spanish, German, French, and Italian students. I think these classes are an excellent way for you to connect with and practice with learners at your same level and pick up useful insights from experienced tutors. Anyway, that about does it for this review. So let's get to my final verdict. Should you choose Babbel to learn Russian? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. Sure, I do have a few minor grievances with the program, like the fact that there is no video component with lessons and that the verbal practice drills are somewhat elementary, but by and large, I think this is an extremely effective course to learn Russian. I really like Babbel's short, diverse lesson format, their flexible review sessions, accurate speech software, and the streamlined grammar instruction. All in all, I just think that the Babbel Russian program is a great fit for beginners. However, I would just note that the course doesn't progress past the CEFR A2 level, so once you reach an intermediate level of fluency, you're likely going to have to look elsewhere if you want to keep progressing towards a more advanced level. And if that is the case, make sure to check out our reviews of Rocket Russian or Pimsleur Russian. Those are two good options. But anyway, that's all I've got for you. I hope this video was helpful and you learned a little something about Babbel Russian. If so, make sure to return the favor by subscribing to our channel, liking this video, and drop me a quick comment below. That would be really appreciated. And again, if you want to see that full detailed written review that I mentioned earlier in this video, just hop on over to our website. Again, that's testprepinsight.com, or you can check out the other videos we have on our YouTube channel. We got a bunch of great content out there. But as always, thanks for watching, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next one.